Good morning, everybody. Well, maybe everybody isn't watching, but for those of you who are watching, good morning. It's a nice Friday morning, last day of the week, and I'm having some coffee. My dog's getting a little anxious about getting a walk this morning, so I had to put him outside so he's not whining and barking. I want to talk a little bit this morning about early recovery, which can be a difficult time. Because when you make that decision to get sober and get clean, it's usually because something terrible is about to happen, or something terrible has just happened, or you're getting full of that feeling of being at the end of the road. You know, you can't really imagine your life without your substances, and you can't really imagine your life anymore with your substances. I know for me, I just had to get to that point. I don't know why I had to give away so many things to keep drinking, but I did. But when I got to that point, I made a decision. I had a sponsor who'd been trying to work with me for 6 months or so of continuous drinking between meetings and all that. And when I got my last start over token 23 years ago, my sponsor suggested I might want to move into a halfway house, a recovery residence, whatever they call them now. And I thought that was a good idea. And I remember trying to get hold of friends and people, family, to let them know I was no longer going to be in my apartment, but would be moving immediately to a new place. And, you know, I wanted to give them the address and so forth. And many of them I called. I had a friend in New York who was pretty important to me at that time, and he was another writer, and we had a pretty good relationship for, 15, 20 years at that point. And anyway, I was writing him a letter to try and make him understand what was going on in my life, why I was moving to this recovery home. And I had actually already moved by the time I started the letter. I'd called him once, and he seemed confused, so that's why I was writing the letter. And in the midst of writing the letter, it turned into a poem. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Red Flags. Some Wednesday evenings after our meeting, Joe and I drive by the place. Bud's. It's an ordinary neighborhood tavern. But as we drive by, my head turns. I watch the patrons through the big plate glass window, men and women on stools along the bar, pool players, dart throwers. Thirsty? Joe asks. He asks me that almost every time we drive by. No, I tell him. And he looks at me for a moment, a little grin pulling at the line of his mouth. It was my first time, I tell him. Well, the first time I knew, anyway. Yeah, he asks. 25 years ago, I went in for lunch, a bowl of chili and a beer. I had about an hour to kill before delivering a paper on Emily Dixon. I remember the waitress, a redhead with freckles. What do you have, hon? I told her, and a minute later she was back with a cold, long neck. I took the first pull and looked out that big window, thinking about my professor and the other students. I could picture their mouths dropping open upon hearing my brilliant insights into a certain slant of light. And then, in a quickness that cannot be measured, the redhead was back. That be all, hon? She dropped my check next to my half-eaten bowl of chili. A dozen Empty long necks stood around the bowl, their red labels like warning flags. I looked at my watch. Fuck, I muttered. The warning flags waved at me. I had driven through some invisible barrier full speed on a one-lane, one-way highway. Joe nods, still grinning. Yeah, I know.